I have a little different, conceptual view. 40 years after King's assassination, 15 years after Cesar Chavez has made his transition, I think that regardless of whether or not we have a African American as president or a woman as president, we'll still be faced pretty much with the same challenges that we've been faced with since the existence of this country, of the idea of the American dream. I think that the social, philosophical, economic construct that we call the American dream has defined people as things in this culture. And it is the root cause of the problems that are affecting this country. Until we begin to address the deep-rooted, sexual, physical, and psychological abuse that has taken place in the personal lives of individuals, we're going to continue to perpetuate the problems that we see happening out here every day. As Najee spoke, there's been, I feel like, a campaign to make it seem as if African Americans and Latinos are at war, that the Latino community is waging an ethnic cleansing, and folks have used that term, and it's just ridiculous, that I think that folks even utilize those types of languaging and words, because the logos is very powerful when you use it in that way. To say that Latinos are trying to ethnic cleanse African Americans is just totally ridiculous. The truth is that no one wants to ever question or hear the answers from the perpetrator. In the personal life of the individuals who are the victims and the perpetrators of these heinous acts is the truth. And it's the thing that we're most afraid of as a culture, because to hear the truth come from one of the perpetrators of one of these violent acts, that in their personal life, in their childhood, there is sexual abuse, there is physical, there is psychological abuse, it triggers our own wounds. And it makes us have to really expose the secrets in our own personal life, and we're afraid to do it. It's a taboo in the culture to talk about the things that we've suffered in our own personal life. It's criminal to even talk about being sexually abused. And we know that sexual abuse has the same symptoms as post-traumatic stress disorder. I grew up in the Jordan Housing Project in Watts. I've lost friends. 4 years ago, my son was murdered. I know what it is to grow up in a war zone. The symptoms that accompany post-traumatic stress disorder, hypervigilance, being emotionally desensitized, major trust issues, they're the same issues that the same symptoms that are attached to sexual abuse, to physical abuse. And if you read the psychological manual, it says that PTSD it doesn't happen in the person, it's a result of what happens in the community. And it's a result of a person actually dealing with the community. When the body dies, it releases an etheric energy that can be harnessed to do what we perceive as good things or bad things. We saw what the Bush administration did with the 2,000 or so lives lost in New York at 9/11. They harnessed the essence, they tapped into all of our fears, and it went over to Iraq and it killed over 600,000 people. So the same thing is happening in this culture with all of the media attention trying to drum up this whole conflict between African Americans and Latinos. I'm like, 20 years ago, there was a large influx of Latinos that moved into the Watts community. Now Watts has always been a community that has had both African Americans and Latinos. Matter of fact, they share a common culture. But over 20 years ago, there was a large influx of immigrants who were escaping war out of Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, coming into the community. And many African Americans, so-called gang members, murdered these individuals, taking advantage of them not because they were Latino, because they knew that they didn't understand the unwritten rules of the neighborhood. They knew that they didn't have the protection of knowing, some of the long-term, Chicano families that have lived in the community. It was basically a preying on these individuals. And guess where it's coming from? It was coming from the wounds of their own personal life. It had nothing to do necessarily with race. Now, we're all racist in the culture because we've all been conditioned that way as a part of the American dream. Least we forget. Under this whole idea, this whole social philosophical construct called the American dream, we've perpetrated some of the most heinous crimes against humanity. The genocide against Native Americans, subjecting people of African descent to 400 years of slavery and 100 years of Jim Crow. The spoon-feeding of people of European descent, hatred, racism, the lie of superiority. These are the things that we have to erase out. This is the message that King was trying to deliver to the people, that it's the mindset, it's the heart and the imagination that we have to shift. It's not the physical, things. I mean, of course, we need jobs, we need opportunities, but let me tell you, if we don't change the heart, the job is only going to act as a buffer